Welcome, dear listener, to a place of quiet thought and gentle restoration. You've arrived at the Dreamy Doctor, a channel where science moves slowly, like clouds across a still morning sky. Tonight, we embark on a peaceful journey through the hidden world of fasting, a journey where silence is healing and time, like the tide, brings renewal. This video, Fasting and Healing, how your body restores itself in stillness, is a soft unfolding of the science, the sensations, and a deep cellular rhythm that begins when we simply pause and allow the body to listen to itself. As you rest or drift, or simply breathe more deeply, feel free to like this video if it brings you peace. And if you like more slow journeys like this one, you may gently subscribe and let the next story find you when you need it most. The journey into stillness begins not with loud alarms or dramatic signs. It begins quietly within. The stomach, once busy with churning and sorting, rests. Its usual orchestra of contractions and digestive murmurs softens. A silence begins to echo in the body, like the hush after snowfall. With no incoming food to break down, the body listens inward. Energy that would have gone to digestion is redirected toward deep cellular reflection. An empty stomach whispers to the brain through gentle chemical messengers. Ghrelin, often called the hunger hormone, rises with grace, not to disturb, but to remind. Ghrelin doesn't just make us hungry. It sharpens memory, enhances focus, and encourages the release of growth hormone. In stillness, it speaks softly, nudging the mind awake. In this quiet, the body begins to remember its ancient rhythms, how our ancestors once fasted, not by choice, but by season, by scarcity, by the natural ebb and flow of life. The whisper of an empty stomach is not a cry for panic. It is the call of returning home, of entering the gentle stream of healing. As the hours pass, glucose, our usual fuel, slowly fades from the bloodstream. Insulin levels drop, unlocking fat stores, like opening hidden cabinets of energy tucked away for safekeeping. The body becomes more sensitive, more efficient, more deliberate. This shift doesn't feel like a sudden jolt. Rather, it's like turning down the brightness of a room and letting the shadows deepen. The digestive fire dims, and in its place, the quiet work of restoration begins. The mind may wander, aware of the slight emptiness, but this is not emptiness that weakens. It is an emptiness that nourishes in a way we cannot always see. Deep inside, the cells begin to listen, to clean, to prepare for what is coming next. Fasting does not mean starvation. It means trust in the body's ancient intelligence, in its gentle cycles of feeding and resting, of gathering and releasing. Intermittent fasting is not a diet, not a punishment, not a rigid law. It is a rhythm, a returning to balance. It allows the body to enter a state it once knew well, a state of clarity, of renewal, of deep inward repair. Most people begin with the 16:8 method, 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating. Others follow 18:6 or 20:4, or the circadian 12-12 rhythm, rising and sleeping with the sun. The numbers are not strict doors, but soft invitations. Each rhythm has its own flavor, its own tempo, its own song. During the fasting window, no calories enter the body. Water flows, tea steams, black coffee may sit quietly by. But sugar, protein, and fat rest outside the door, so the body may turn inward and listen to its hidden symphony. Why does this matter? Because the body is not meant to digest constantly. Constant eating keeps insulin high, keeps the digestive system busy, prevents repair. In contrast, fasting lowers insulin, like releasing the brakes. The body can now shift gear. Fat burning begins. Cellular cleanup starts. Inflammation subsides. It is not about eating less. It is about eating less often. Giving space between meals is like giving the body a moment to breathe. Time stretches in the fasted state, and in this stillness, clarity arises. The mind feels a touch lighter. Thoughts untangle. The fog lifts. At first, the body resists change. It loves its patterns, its habits, its comforts. But after a few days or weeks, the rhythm becomes familiar. The waves smooth out. Hunger visits, but does not linger. The body learns it is safe, it is strong, it is healing. Fasting is not just a physical process. It is also emotional. We notice our cravings, our habits, our rituals with food, and slowly we begin to unlace them, gently, patiently, without shame. It is the choice to say, I have enough. I am enough. Let me just be for now. Fasting does not ask for force. It asks for softness, for listening, for rest. Like a lake undisturbed, the body reflects its clearest truths when nothing is added and nothing is stirred. Intermittent fasting is the art of giving space. In that space, the body begins to sing. Fasting is not new. It is not a trend, not a novelty wrapped in science. It is a river flowing through every ancient culture, quiet, sacred, timeless. Long before the first clinical trial, before the first nutrition label, humans fasted with the land. Food was hunted, gathered, stored in seasons. Winters came with hunger. Summers brought plenty. The body learned to stretch energy, to adapt, to thrive in both fullness and stillness. Ancient Egyptians fasted to cleanse the body and honor the gods. Greeks fasted for clarity. Pythagoras would not teach students who did not fast. In India, sages fasted to purify the mind. In Native American traditions, fasting was a rite of passage, a doorway to vision and spirit. Religions across the world carry the thread. Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset in Ramadan, a practice of reflection and discipline. Christians, Jews, Buddhists, Hindus all hold fasting as a sacred pause, a way to meet the divine through the doorway of the body. And yet, in all traditions, fasting is not just about not eating. It is about becoming still, about quieting the noise of consumption. When we stop eating, we also stop rushing, craving, distracting. We sit with the self, with the silence inside. Modern science has only recently begun to translate this ancient language. We now see how fasting triggers autophagy, how the body cleans itself, cell by cell. We understand how growth hormone rises, inflammation declines, insulin sensitivity improves. But the ancients did not need graphs to trust the body. They fasted because they felt lighter afterward, more clear, more grounded, more awake. Stillness is not new. It is a return, a remembering. In a world that often urges us to eat more, move faster, stay busy, fasting is the quiet rebellion. A peaceful one, a soft, inner resistance to overstimulation. The body is a clock, ticking quietly beneath the skin, not with gears or hands, but with pulses, enzymes, light-sensitive proteins, and time. Our internal clock is called the circadian rhythm, from the Latin circa diem, meaning about a day. This rhythm governs when we sleep, when we wake, when hormones rise, when digestion flows. Every cell listens to it. Every organ follows its lead. In a natural world, unmarked by artificial lights and midnight snacks, we would rise with the sun and rest soon after it sets. Our cortisol would greet the morning like a gentle stretch. Our melatonin would wrap us in twilight's soft arms by night. Fasting works best when it aligns with these ancient rhythms. Studies show that eating in sync with daylight enhances insulin sensitivity. Glucose is processed more efficiently in the morning and early afternoon than late at night. This means eating your meals earlier in the day supports the body's metabolic flow. Fasting overnight, especially past sunset, allows the digestive system to sleep too. Researchers at the Salk Institute have found that time-restricted feeding, even without reducing calories, can improve weight regulation, reduce blood sugar levels, and strengthen liver function, all by respecting the body's clock. At night, the liver begins its cleansing shift. The pancreas slows down. The digestive tract enters rest mode. Eating during these hours disturbs this rhythm, like playing a trumpet in a sleeping orchestra. But when we fast through the night and wait until morning light to eat again, the rhythm restores itself, softly, gently, like tuning a forgotten instrument. Intermittent fasting, when paired with the natural rise and fall of light, is not just nourishment. It becomes harmony. The first few hours after a meal are familiar territory to the body. The gears are turning, the fires are gently lit. During this post-meal phase called the fed state, insulin is released. Its job is to escort glucose from the bloodstream into the cells, especially muscles and the liver, where it's stored as glycogen. This is when the body is focused on processing, not healing. It's digesting, absorbing, storing. A busy time inside, a little like a kitchen after a feast. But about 3 to 4 hours after eating, the fed state begins to fade. The stomach empties. Insulin begins to fall. The levels of glucagon, its quiet opposite, start to rise. Glucagon tells the body, we're done storing. Let's begin using. This shift marks the entry into the post-absorptive state, where the body begins drawing on stored energy, not incoming food. At this point, the liver releases stored glycogen, breaking it down into glucose to keep the blood stable. For most people, the liver holds about 80 to 100 grams of glycogen, enough for roughly 12 to 16 hours of gentle energy flow, depending on activity levels and metabolism. But more than just energy is shifting, the body's priorities are too. With insulin low, the pathways for cellular repair begin to open. This includes DNA repair enzymes, mild activation of AMPK, a metabolic sensor, and a subtle increase in lipolysis, the breakdown of stored fat. The body is preparing for something deeper. Fasting is not a switch. It's a slow descent into stillness. And the first 4 hours are the soft invitation, the breath between routines. In the hours that follow a meal, the body typically burns glucose, a simple sugar, quickly accessible, stored in the liver and muscles as glycogen. It is efficient, fast-burning, and well-suited for energy in times of activity. But this energy is short-lived. Glycogen stores are limited. In an average person, they last roughly 12 to 18 hours, depending on activity, stress, and prior meals. As fasting continues and glycogen is gently depleted, the body approaches a turning point, a metabolic shift known as the switch. This is not a crash, not a fall, but a graceful pivot, the body moving from its immediate sugar stores to its longer, deeper reserves, fat. In this state, called fat adaptation, stored triglycerides in fat cells begin to break down into free fatty acids. These molecules travel to the liver, where they are converted into ketone bodies, small, energy-rich compounds like beta-hydroxybutyrate, which can fuel the brain, heart, and muscles. The switch is not abrupt. It is a gradual movement, soft, intelligent, tuned by evolution. In truth, the body was always meant to do this, to glide between fuels like a bird coasting from one thermal current to the next. In ancient times, this metabolic flexibility ensured survival, sustaining people through days without food while keeping the brain alert and the body calm. Ketones, in fact, are more than just fuel. They are signaling molecules. They reduce inflammation. They enhance the expression of antioxidant genes. They even promote the production of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a compound that supports brain cell growth and plasticity. By the 16th hour of fasting, ketones often rise noticeably. By the 24th hour, they may become the body's dominant energy source. And in this state, people often report something else: a curious calm, a quiet clarity, a feeling of lightness, not only in body, but in mind. The switch, then, is not just metabolic. It is emotional, psychological, even spiritual. You move from urgency to steadiness, from seeking to sustaining. And this gentle transformation is what makes fasting so profound. It is not just about what is burned. It is about what is uncovered, what returns, what renews. As fasting deepens and the body's reliance on glucose fades, a new source of energy quietly rises from within: ketones. They emerge from the liver, not suddenly, not loudly, but slowly, like mist rising from a warm field at dawn. Their names are soft and strange: beta-hydroxybutyrate, acetoacetate, acetone. But their purpose is clear: to nourish, to protect, to heal. Ketones are born from fat, your own body fat, gently broken down, released as free fatty acids, converted in the liver to become fuel that burns cool, burns clean. Unlike glucose, which can leave behind oxidative stress, ketones slip through cells with elegance. They nourish mitochondria without smoke or friction. In the brain, they're welcomed like honored guests. The blood-brain barrier, usually cautious, opens wide for ketones. And once inside, ketones offer more than energy. They offer stability. They quiet excessive glutamate, calm inflammation, enhance GABA, the brain's calming neurotransmitter. In this state, many people describe an unfamiliar clarity, thoughts that glide, emotions that soften, attention that stretches like a still lake at sunrise. The mind feels gently alert, not hyper, not sleepy, simply balanced. Ketones also have a special relationship with BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This molecule, like a gardener, encourages the growth of new neurons, strengthens existing connections, and supports learning and memory. Even the heart thrives in ketosis. Unlike most tissues, the heart prefers ketones to glucose during fasting. More efficient, more reliable, especially when stress is low and stillness is deep. The rise of ketones is not just a backup plan. It is a biological masterpiece, an elegant system refined through millennia, whispering, "You are safe. You are strong. You are designed for this." After about 18 to 24 hours of fasting, something remarkable begins to stir, a deep cellular process known as autophagy. The word comes from Greek, auto, meaning self, and phagian, meaning to eat. But this is not destruction, it is renewal. It is how the body cleans itself, cell by cell, piece by piece. Autophagy is the body's built-in recycling system. It finds old proteins, damaged organelles, broken cell parts, and gently breaks them down, repurposing their materials, clearing debris, restoring order. Imagine a quiet housekeeper gliding through the corridors of your body, sweeping up fragments of yesterday's wear and tear, patching cracks, oiling hinges. That is autophagy. It does not happen while food is present. When nutrients are flowing in, the body is focused on growth. But in fasting, when nutrients pause, autophagy awakens, like a moonflower blooming in absence of sunlight. One of the key regulators of this process is AMPK, an energy-sensing enzyme that rises when cellular fuel is low. It gently nudges the body toward conservation, efficiency, and repair. AMPK activates autophagy, turns on genes for mitochondrial health, reduces inflammation. At the same time, mTOR, the growth switch, takes a rest. This balance between AMPK and mTOR, between repair and growth, is essential. Fasting allows AMPK to lead, and in doing so, gives cells time to breathe, to mend, to renew. Autophagy has been linked to protection against neurodegenerative diseases, to improved immune response, to reduced cancer risk. In animal studies, fasting-induced autophagy has been shown to extend lifespan. In humans, its fingerprints are just beginning to be traced. But beyond the science, there's a felt sense, an inner lightness that comes with cleansing, like opening windows in a dusty room, like rain rinsing the air. It is not harsh. It is not violent. It is the most natural healing your body can do. And all it asks for is time. As autophagy begins, the body's internal caretakers awaken. These are not single cells or specific organs, but coordinated systems, moving quietly in harmony to cleanse, repair, and regenerate. One of the key players is the lysosome, a tiny structure inside almost every cell, a kind of molecular stomach filled with enzymes that break down waste. During fasting, Lysosomes become more active, digesting and reusing damaged proteins, viruses, even entire worn-out mitochondria. It is here, in the lysosome's chamber, that old is transformed into new. Then there are the macrophages, immune cells whose name means big eaters. They patrol the body, looking for trouble, and during fasting, they shift into a deeper cleaning mode. They remove dead cells, reduce inflammation, clear out potential precancerous cells before they can grow. Even the endoplasmic reticulum, where proteins are folded, finds relief. With fewer incoming nutrients, there is less crowding, less pressure to rush, so proteins fold more carefully. Fewer mistakes are made. The body hums more gently. Mitochondria, too, respond to fasting with subtle intelligence. Old ones are marked for recycling. New ones are born more efficient, more robust. This is called mitophagy, autophagy, for mitochondria, and it ensures your cellular engines are running clean. As this cellular housekeeping continues, a transformation takes root, not only in tissues, but in tone, in rhythm, in being. The immune system becomes less reactive, the nervous system more balanced. White blood cells are refreshed. Inflammatory cytokines fall. Hormonal cascades stabilize. And slowly, the body slips into a deeper state of ease. It's a kind of biological sigh, a letting go of all that's unnecessary. In this stillness, you're not doing less, you're doing what matters most. Repair, renewal, release. Within the silence of fasting, something remarkable begins to unfold. A deep, gentle rhythm of renewal. The body, given space and time, begins to turn inward, not to rest idly, but to carefully inspect, repair, and restore each part of itself. Cells begin to tidy their interiors. Worn-out parts are taken apart. Broken proteins, damaged membranes, and fragmented DNA are removed with care. This is not destruction. This is renewal, intelligent, resourceful, elegant. Much of this takes place through a process called proteostasis, the balance of protein production, folding, and degradation. Under the constant flow of meals, this balance is often overwhelmed. Errors slip through. Misfolded proteins accumulate like clutter. But during fasting, this stress is eased. Autophagy cleans out the buildup, and protein quality improves. Old, damaged cells signal for removal. New, healthier ones quietly prepare to take their place. Some stem cells begin to awaken, not to multiply wildly, but to rebuild selectively, only where needed and only when the environment is clean. Even our epigenetics, the chemical markings on DNA that determine which genes turn on or off, begin to shift. Fasting influences histone acetylation and DNA methylation, opening new genetic doors while gently closing others. It is as though the body, reflecting in stillness, begins to remember its original design. Nothing is rushed. Everything is deliberate. Every hour of fasting is a message to the body. Repair what is worn. Let go of what no longer serves. And in that quiet, the cells respond, not with noise, but with grace. Tucked beneath the ribs, the liver sits in silence, an organ of alchemy, constantly transforming what enters the body into what the body needs. In the fed state, the liver is a processor, It receives sugars, fats, amino acids, sorting, storing, converting. But in fasting, its role changes. It becomes a provider, a chemist, a healer. Within just 8 to 12 hours of fasting, the liver shifts from glycogen storage to gluconeogenesis, a process where it creates glucose from amino acids, lactate, and glycerol. This maintains blood sugar levels without needing food. As fasting deepens, the liver begins producing ketone bodies, created from free fatty acids. These ketones, beta-hydroxybutyrate and acetoacetate, are clean-burning fuels, especially cherished by the brain, the heart, and skeletal muscles. But the liver does more than fuel production. It also becomes a master of detoxification. With digestion paused, the liver turns its attention inward. It clears old hormones, filters metabolic waste, and processes fat-soluble toxins stored in tissues. Enzymes like cytochrome P450, part of the liver's phase 1 detox pathway, become more efficient. The antioxidant glutathione, often depleted by poor diet or stress, begins to rise. Inflammatory markers, such as C-reactive protein, begin to fall. Liver fat begins to melt away. In studies, even short-term fasting can reduce markers of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, improving insulin sensitivity and reducing inflammation. The liver, often overburdened by modern eating patterns, finally gets a moment to breathe. And in that breath, it begins to shine. With each hour of fasting, the liver becomes less a factory and more a sanctuary. It is not only cleaning the blood, it is restoring balance. Deep inside every cell, there are thousands of tiny engines, mitochondria, responsible for producing the energy we call life. They are ancient structures, once independent bacteria, now partners in our biology, whispering quietly within our cells, crafting ADP, adenosine triphosphate, the body's energy currency. In the fed state, mitochondria burn glucose, but in fasting, they're given a different fuel, fatty acids, and ketones. These fuels are not only longer lasting, they are cleaner, producing less oxidative stress, releasing fewer free radicals. With fasting, mitochondria begin to improve, not just in function, but in number and design. A process called mitochondrial biogenesis is gently activated. New mitochondria are formed. Older, damaged ones are removed through mitophagy, a form of autophagy specific to mitochondrial cleanup. This means that during fasting, your body is not only using energy more wisely, it is building better engines. And better engines mean better endurance, stronger metabolism, clearer brain function, more resilience to aging. Fasting also increases PGC, 1-alpha, a protein that regulates mitochondrial health, antioxidant defenses, and fat metabolism. It's like a conductor, ensuring the mitochondrial orchestra plays in tune. The result is a deep cellular revitalization, not just for one day, but for weeks, months, possibly years. In mice, enhanced mitochondrial function from intermittent fasting has been linked to longer lifespan, reduced neurodegeneration, and better memory. In humans, the benefits are just beginning to be understood, but the feeling is undeniable. A clarity of mind, a steady energy, a soft, persistent glow from within. The mitochondria do not need noise to thrive. They thrive in stillness, in space, in silence. And fasting, more than anything else, gives them exactly that. The mind, like a garden, flourishes in balance, not only in nourishment, but also in stillness. Fasting, though often thought of as a physical act, reaches quietly into the folds of the brain, where it does not starve but soothes. As glucose wanes and insulin falls, the brain begins to shift its energy supply. No longer fed by fast-burning sugar, it turns to ketones, molecules born of fat carrying a steady, calming current. Ketones, especially beta-hydroxybutyrate, move into the brain with ease. They are welcomed as clean fuel, gentler on neurons, cooler in combustion, freer of stress. These molecules reduce the production of reactive oxygen species, the unstable fragments that fray our cells and age the mind over time. In this state, the brain becomes less inflamed, less reactive, more centered. Regions that typically flicker with anxiety, the amygdala, the limbic system, the scattered threads of stress, begin to quiet. Thought slows. Attention steadies. Mood lifts, not in elation, but in softness. A slow, observational clarity replaces the usual mental noise. Fasting brings the brain not into exhaustion, but into equilibrium, a state where energy is used wisely, where the background hum of inflammation falls away and thought is allowed to unfold like pages turning without rush. Neurotransmitters shift too. Dopamine rises in small, balanced waves. Serotonin, the molecule of serenity, flows with more ease. GABA, the brain's calming voice, whispers more clearly. This is not the clarity of caffeine or adrenaline. It is the clarity of an open sky after rain. Wide, clean, quiet. And it comes not from doing more, but from doing less. From allowing the brain to rest. The human brain is not fixed. It is not carved in stone. It is a river, changing shape as it flows. This capacity for change, for growth, for renewal is called neuroplasticity. It is the ability of neurons to forge new paths, to strengthen old ones, to prune what no longer serves. Fasting gently enhances this process, not by forcing it, but by allowing space, by reducing noise, by feeding the brain in a different way. When the body enters a fasted state, it begins producing more ketones, yes, but also more signaling molecules, subtle messengers that encourage the brain to evolve. These include adiponectin, FGF21, and BDNF, each playing a role in how neurons connect and reshape themselves. At the same time, inflammation retreats. Inflammatory markers like IL-6 and TNF-alpha, often elevated in poor metabolic health, begin to decline. The brain, no longer distracted by chemical alarms, becomes a place where clarity can grow. One of the most important regions affected is the hippocampus, the seat of memory, learning, and spatial awareness. Fasting has been shown in animal models to preserve this region with age, to stimulate the birth of new neurons, and to increase resilience under stress. Even the white matter, the connective highways between brain regions, benefits. Myelin, the fatty sheath that insulates these pathways, is better preserved when oxidative stress is low. In fasting, through reduced blood sugar fluctuations and improved mitochondrial function, helps keep this insulation intact. Neuroplasticity doesn't happen loudly. It unfolds in silence, like roots growing underground. Slowly, invisibly, powerfully, the brain is not a machine. It is a forest, and fasting, for a moment, clears away the debris, letting the light reach the forest floor, so the mind can grow again. Among the molecules that guide the brain's renewal, one stands quietly at the center, BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It is not a hormone, not a fuel, but something gentler, a neurotrophin, a kind of internal gardener that helps neurons thrive. BDNF encourages neurons to grow new branches, strengthens the connections between synapses, protects against cell death. It is most active in areas tied to memory, learning, and emotional regulation, especially the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex. When BDNF is low, the brain feels sluggish, fragile, easily overwhelmed. When it is high, learning feels smoother, thoughts more flexible, the mind more balanced. Fasting increases BDNF levels, sometimes by more than 50% in key regions of the brain. This is not due to deprivation, but adaptation, an evolutionary signal that says, you are in a state of challenge. Let your brain sharpen so you can respond. But BDNF does more than just help the brain think. It also helps the brain feel. Increased BDNF has been linked to reduced symptoms of depression, improved sleep patterns, deeper resilience to trauma and stress. It supports emotional regulation, not by numbing, but by strengthening the circuits that hold steady in changing tides. BDNF also speaks to the vagus nerve, the long, quiet thread that connects the brain to the body. Through this pathway, emotional healing is carried into the gut, and bodily calm is carried into the mind. It is through BDNF that fasting becomes more than metabolism. It becomes renewal of the self. Not louder, not stronger, just clearer, more whole, more at peace. Beneath the quiet surface of the fasting body, the heart finds a moment of peace. Each beat, once responding to the rush of glucose, the rise of insulin, the tug of digestion, now moves with more ease, more space, more rhythm. Fasting does not weaken the heart. It supports it. With less insulin, less inflammation, less metabolic noise, the heart is allowed to rest. And in that rest, it begins to grow stronger. The parasympathetic nervous system, often called the rest and digest branch, becomes more active during fasting. Heart rate slows. Blood pressure gently lowers. The rhythm of the body settles into stillness. The heart is no longer pushed. It begins to glide. In clinical studies, intermittent fasting has been shown to improve heart rate variability. The subtle beat-to-beat changes that indicate flexibility and resilience in the cardiovascular system. Higher variability means the body can adapt more easily, respond more calmly, remain grounded in both rest and stress. Fasting also reduces triglycerides, LDL cholesterol, and C-reactive protein, all markers of cardiovascular strain. At the same time, it supports the rise of HDL, the helpful carrier that clears out cholesterol from the blood. But beyond numbers, there's a feeling, subtle, gentle, hard to describe. A softness in the chest, a deepened breath, a quieter pulse beneath the fingertips. The heart, so often shaped by stress and sugar, finds in fasting not silence, but harmony. It does not have to beat louder to be strong. It only needs to beat true. Insulin, a silent sculptor of the body, rises with food, especially carbohydrates. It opens the door to energy storage. It tells muscles to fill with sugar. It tells the liver to store. It tells fat cells to expand, just in case there's famine ahead. In balance, insulin is essential. Without it, cells would starve. But when insulin is constantly high, meal after meal, snack after snack, the body forgets how to listen. Cells become resistant. Glucose builds up. Fat accumulates. Inflammation flickers into flame. And so, fasting becomes a kind of whisper, a message to insulin. You may rest now. After 12 to 16 hours of fasting, insulin levels begin to drop significantly. This shift unlocks many things. First, it allows lipolysis, the breakdown of stored fat into usable fuel, to begin. When insulin is high, fat is locked away. When insulin falls, fat flows freely. The body becomes a careful steward of its own reserves. Second, low insulin improves insulin sensitivity, the body's ability to respond to insulin when it returns. Muscles become more receptive. Blood sugar spikes become softer. Energy becomes more stable. In people with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes, intermittent fasting has been shown to reduce fasting glucose levels, decrease A1C, and in some cases, even lead to reversal of insulin resistance. But insulin doesn't only affect sugar. It touches inflammation, hormonal balance, vascular health, even cognition. Its pause echoes through every system. Fasting does not eliminate insulin. It respects it. It gives it time to sleep so that when it returns with clarity. Like a messenger who has been speaking too often, too loudly, too long. Insulin needs only space to be heard again. Within the stillness of fasting, a quiet orchestra plays, the gentle rise and fall of hormones, moving in new rhythms, creating new balances. With each hour of fasting, ghrelin, the hunger hormone, pulses through the bloodstream. Not wildly, not cruelly, but rhythmically. It reminds the brain to prepare for food, yes, but it also sharpens memory, enhances growth hormone, supports digestion. Ghrelin is not a scream, it is a wave. Then there is leptin, the hormone of satiety, secreted by fat cells. When fasting is practiced regularly, leptin sensitivity improves. The body begins to sense fullness again, more clearly, more honestly. Cravings soften, satisfaction returns. Adiponectin, another messenger from fat, rises during fasting. It enhances fat burning, reduces inflammation, protects blood vessels, whispers health through every capillary. But one of the most profound shifts happens with human growth hormone, HGH. During extended fasting, 24, 36, even 48 hours, HGH levels may increase by as much as 2,000%. This hormone, essential for muscle maintenance, fat metabolism, and cellular repair, rises to protect the body in times of energy scarcity. HGH is not about bulking. It is about preserving. It helps maintain lean mass while the body draws gently on fat. It supports collagen synthesis, tissue healing, longevity. Cortisol, too, makes an appearance not as a threat, but as a rhythm. In the early stages of fasting, cortisol may rise slightly, helping mobilize energy. But over time, with proper rest and nourishment, cortisol finds its balance again. Spikes soften, circadian flow is restored. Even testosterone and estrogen, the body's primary sex hormones, are influenced by fasting. Balanced fasting, especially in men, may support healthy testosterone levels. In women, shorter fasts and circadian-aligned patterns help stabilize estrogen, regulate cycles, enhance fertility when done thoughtfully. The language of hormones is not abrupt. It is fluid. It is nuanced. It is responsive to every bite, every breath, every hour of stillness. Fasting is not a forceful silence. It is a conversation, one where the body finally has time to speak and to listen. Before there were farms, before there were grocery stores, before there were 3 meals a day, there was fasting. Not chosen, but lived. The body, shaped by seasons, hunger, and long walks under the sky, learned to store energy not only for use, but for waiting. That energy was kept in fat, soft, quiet, abundant. Fat became the body's gentle reserve, not a burden, but a blessing, not a flaw, but a flame that could burn slowly for days. In fasting, we return to this ancient wisdom. As insulin falls, the signal to store fades away. Fat cells, once closed, begin to open. Inside, triglycerides are broken down into free fatty acids, sent into the bloodstream, carried to the liver, converted into ketones, or burned directly in the muscles. This process is called lipolysis, and it is as natural as breathing. The body begins to shift from sugar to fat, gracefully, quietly, with no force. In this state, fat becomes fuel. Energy flows, not in spikes, but in streams. There is no crash, no sudden hunger, only steadiness. And with this shift comes something deeper, the realization that fat is not only stored for emergencies, but for balance, to nourish the body when food is paused, to support clarity of mind, to allow healing without interruption. Fasting does not break the body down. It reminds it how to be whole again. You're not running out of energy. You're discovering a different kind. The one you've always had, tucked beneath the surface, waiting. A common fear whispers through the idea of fasting. What about the muscles? But here again, the body surprises us, not with weakness, but with wisdom. When fasting is practiced gently and rhythmically, muscle is not the first to go. In fact, it is preserved, protected, even strengthened in subtle ways. This protection is guided by hormones, growth hormone, rising in response to fasting, norepinephrine, gently increasing to keep the mind alert and the body ready, and the continued activity of ketones, which spare muscle protein by providing clean, alternative fuel. Studies show that short-term fasting, up to 48 hours, does not significantly reduce lean muscle mass. Instead, the body draws from fat. It prioritizes essential tissues. It enters a state of preservation, not depletion. During fasting, autophagy also enters the muscles, helping to clear out damaged proteins, misfolded fibers, and aging mitochondria. This internal renewal allows new, healthier components to grow when eating resumes. If fasting is followed by nutrient-rich meals, especially with protein, the body responds with rebound anabolism, a wave of rebuilding that strengthens the very fibers that were resting. Even in trained athletes, intermittent fasting has been shown to maintain muscle mass while reducing fat, increasing insulin sensitivity, and supporting endurance. The key is not to starve the muscles, but to listen to them. Fasting is not about fighting the body. It is about giving it space. Muscles like minds grow stronger in the pause. The digestive tract is more than a tube. It is a living ecosystem, home to trillions of microbes, nerves, immune cells, and memories. It is also among the hardest working systems in the body, processing food, breaking it down, absorbing nutrients, removing waste, hour after hour, day after day. And yet, in modern life, it is almost never allowed to rest. Every bite restarts the machinery. Every sip nudges the cycle forward. This constant stimulation can lead to inflammation, bacterial imbalance, leaky gut, fatigue. Fasting offers the gut what it so rarely receives: stillness. Within just 12 hours of fasting, the migrating motor complex, a rhythmic wave that sweeps undigested food and debris through the small intestine, becomes more active. These waves do not occur during meals. They're the janitors of the gut, cleaning out what has been left behind. As the hours continue, gut inflammation begins to ease. Intestinal permeability, sometimes called leaky gut, can begin to reduce. The tight junctions between intestinal cells begin to close more firmly. Immune signaling calms. Irritation fades. The gut microbiome, the vast population of bacteria within the colon, also responds to fasting. Harmful species, often fueled by constant sugar and processed foods, begin to decline. Beneficial bacteria, like Akkermansia mucinifera, known for protecting the gut lining, may begin to rise. Fasting also increases the production of butyrate, a short-chain fatty acid that supports colon health, reduces inflammation, and even influences mood via the gut-brain axis. The gut is a mirror to the nervous system. When it is quieted, the whole body feels calmer. And perhaps as the digestive tract hums more gently, we begin to hear something else. An inner silence, a sense of realignment, a feeling that everything is finding its place again. The gut doesn't always need more food. Sometimes it just needs time. Time to sweep, to seal, to breathe. And in that space, healing begins. The immune system is a vast network, fluid, dynamic, always listening. It guards us from danger, repairs what breaks, surveys every corner of the body with quiet vigilance. But in modern life, where food is constant, inflammation high, and stress unrelenting, this system becomes confused, overstimulated, sometimes even turned against itself. Fasting offers the immune system something it rarely receives: a reset. In early fasting, white blood cells begin to decline slightly, not as a failure, but as an invitation to renewal. Damaged, exhausted cells are cleared away. The immune system enters a phase of selective cleansing. By 48 to 72 hours of fasting, hematopoietic stem cells, the precursors to new immune cells, begin to activate. In mouse studies, prolonged fasting has been shown to regenerate entire branches of the immune system, rebuilding fresh, more functional immune cells once feeding resumes. Autophagy, too, enters immune cells, cleaning out viruses, bacteria, misfolded proteins, and waste. Macrophages become more efficient, T cells less inflammatory. The whole system begins to recalibrate, moving away from chronic, low-grade inflammation toward balance. Even inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-alpha begin to drop. These messengers, which fuel conditions like arthritis, allergies, and autoimmune disorders, find their volume dialed down and fasting's quiet. Meanwhile, oxidative stress, often a burden on immune organs like the spleen and lymph nodes, begins to fade. Antioxidant activity increases, repair enzymes return to their work. And as the gut heals, sealing its tight junctions, clearing bacterial overgrowth, the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, which makes up more than half the immune system, begins to respond with new clarity. The body is not lowering its defenses. It is sharpening them. Fasting does not suppress immunity. It refines it, reminding it of what to protect and what to let go. Inflammation is not the enemy. It is a signal, a fire lit in response to harm. But when the fire burns too long or without cause, it damages what it was meant to protect. Chronic inflammation lives beneath the surface. It doesn't scream. It whispers through joint pain, brain fog, skin irritation, fatigue. It is the background noise of so many modern diseases. And fasting, more than anything, softens this noise. Within hours of fasting, insulin drops, and with it, C-reactive protein, one of the clearest markers of inflammation, begins to fall. NF-kappa B, a key regulator of inflammatory gene expression, is dialed down. The body stops producing excess inflammatory cytokines. Tissues begin to relax. Cellular repair takes priority. Interleukin-1 and tumor necrosis factor alpha, two powerful signals of inflammation, are also reduced during prolonged fasting. This decline helps ease swelling in joints, pain in muscles, and overreaction in autoimmune conditions. Ketones contribute too. Beta-hydroxybutyrate, the dominant fasting ketone, directly inhibits the NLRP3 inflammasome, a central engine of inflammation in many chronic conditions, including Alzheimer's and cardiovascular disease. Fasting also increases levels of adiponectin, a hormone secreted by fat cells that improves insulin sensitivity and suppresses inflammation. But perhaps most beautifully, the effects are systemic. The lungs, liver, skin, and even the brain all respond to this quieter biochemical environment. They begin to rest, recover, and remember how to function in harmony. The fire does not vanish. It simply becomes warm again, no longer a blaze but a glow. And in that glow, healing happens. Pain is the body's oldest signal. It speaks when something is broken, when something is inflamed, when something is being ignored. But not all pain is acute. Much of it, especially in the modern world, is persistent, low-level, chronic. It weaves through the body like a dull ache, sometimes physical, sometimes emotional. Fasting, through its quiet adjustments, can help soften this pain, not by numbing it, but by addressing its roots. As inflammation subsides, pressure on nerves decreases. Swelling in joints, connective tissues, and surrounding muscle reduces. The body moves with more ease, fluid returns to movement, tension releases its grip. Studies have shown that fasting can improve conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, and chronic migraines, not just through inflammation reduction, but through changes in oxidative stress, hormone balance, and immune function. Even pain perception itself changes. Fasting increases levels of endorphins, the body's natural painkillers. It enhances the activity of GABA, a calming neurotransmitter that soothes the nervous system. And it raises serotonin, bringing mood and perception into gentler focus. The brain, too, becomes less reactive. The anterior cingulate cortex, involved in processing pain signals, becomes more regulated. The emotional weight of discomfort begins to lift. Fasting does not eliminate all pain, but it gives the body what it often lacks: time and space to understand the pain, rather than simply respond to it. Sometimes, when the body is allowed to rest, pain finally feels safe enough to leave. Your skin is not just a surface. It is a living, breathing organ, the largest in the body, a quiet shield that tells stories of health, history, and renewal. It holds you in, protects you from the world, and reflects what lies beneath. In fasting, the skin is not deprived. It is given a pause, a break from metabolic traffic, a quiet moment to catch up on years of subtle damage. As insulin falls and inflammation softens, the skin begins to exhale. Sebum production stabilizes. Oil glands, no longer pushed by insulin surges, find balance. This helps with acne, with clogged pores, with irritation that once flared after every meal. Advanced glycation end products, or AGEs, proteins and sugars fused in harmful ways, begin to decline. These AGEs, responsible for the stiffening and wrinkling of collagen, are often reduced through regular fasting. The body, no longer overloaded with sugar, begins to clear them gently. Fasting also stimulates autophagy in skin cells, clearing out damaged structures, reducing oxidative stress, encouraging fresh turnover. Skin begins to glow, not with makeup or sunlight, but from within. Collagen synthesis, essential for skin structure and elasticity, is supported by growth hormone. And during fasting, as HGH levels rise, the body begins to rebuild, strand by strand, the deep matrix beneath the skin's surface. Even psoriasis, eczema, and rosacea, inflammatory skin conditions, have shown improvement during fasting protocols when paired with rest, hydration, and a gentle return to nourishing foods. Fasting does not force beauty. It reveals it slowly, quietly, naturally. The skin, long burdened by constant digestion, finally finds its rhythm again. And in that rhythm, it softens, it heals, it shines. The eyes are delicate structures, windows to the world, and mirrors of our health. Constantly working, constantly exposed, they endure hours of light, screens, and shifting focus. Beneath their surface, a silent strain builds, fed by sugar, stressed by inflammation, aged by oxidation. Fasting begins to soothe these eyes, not through magic, but through cellular peace. In the retina, the paper-thin layer of light-sensing tissue, high glucose levels are especially damaging. Over time, excess sugar forms AGEs, disrupts capillaries, creates oxidative waste. These changes are central to diabetic retinopathy and early visual decline. But fasting, by reducing blood sugar and insulin, helps protect these tissues. It slows the processes of damage, gives the capillaries time to heal, reduces swelling, restores oxygen flow. Beta-hydroxybutyrate, the fasting ketone, also has antioxidant effects in the retina. It reduces ROS, reactive oxygen species, that otherwise fray the fragile ends of photoreceptor cells. Mitochondrial health in the optic nerve improves too, with fasting stimulating repair, clearing dysfunctional mitochondria, and allowing energy to flow more cleanly through the eye's nerve pathways. Even the lens, that transparent disc we focus through, benefits from decreased oxidative stress. Clarity is preserved. The pace of clouding slows. And although fasting doesn't sharpen sight like a lens prescription, it does create a steadier backdrop for vision. A steadier brain, a quieter nervous system, a reduced strain. The eyes don't always need new light. Sometimes they just need time away from the glare, time to rest in shadow, time to restore, time to see differently. Hair and nails, often seen as purely cosmetic, are in truth biological journals, capturing moments of health, stress, and nourishment as they grow. They are made from keratin, a fibrous protein that grows slowly from deep within follicles and nail beds, pushed out by cycles of life, by hormones, by blood flow. During fasting, the body makes choices, essential processes first, repair next, growth only when there is balance. And so, hair and nails may pause in speed, but never in intention. In the early hours of fasting, insulin-like growth factor 1, IGF-1, drops slightly. This is a protective shift. The body temporarily pauses unnecessary cell division. But in response, growth hormone rises, and with refeeding, the combination creates a strong, focused signal to regrow what had rested. Fasting reduces systemic inflammation, a common cause of hair thinning and poor nail growth. As inflammatory cytokines fall, circulation improves. Blood returns to tiny vessels at the base of the scalp, the nail matrix, the follicles. Oxygen flows. Nutrients reach the root. Autophagy, too, assists from within, clearing out oxidative damage from the cells that form keratin. Old debris is swept away. The foundations are renewed. In the longer term, those who fast and then refeed wisely, especially with minerals like zinc, selenium, biotin, and silica, often find their hair thickens again. Their nails grow clearer, smoother, stronger. Not immediately, but slowly, quietly, as though the body were saying, now that the inside is calm, the outside may bloom again. Fasting does not beautify for vanity. It restores from truth. Even the smallest details, your strands, your tips, your touch, are part of the healing. Inside you, there is a clock, not made of gears or bells, but of light, hormones, and time. This is your circadian rhythm, the body's natural 24-hour cycle. It governs everything from sleep and digestion to temperature and cellular repair. Every cell in your body ticks with it, listening for its gentle cues. Fasting, especially when aligned with natural daylight, helps bring this rhythm back into harmony. In our modern lives, the rhythm often falls out of step. Late-night meals, bright artificial light, stress, and constant snacking blur the boundaries between day and night. The body becomes confused. Digestion stirs when it should rest. Sleep grows shallow. Metabolism begins to stumble. But fasting, when practiced with the rising and setting sun, allows the body to remember. As the hours of eating are compressed, perhaps into a 6 or 8-hour window, hormonal cycles begin to recalibrate. Melatonin, the sleep hormone, begins to rise naturally after sunset. Cortisol, which once spiked unpredictably, returns to its morning rise and evening fall. Insulin sensitivity peaks earlier in the day, encouraging meals before dusk, another rhythm restored. Adiponectin, leptin, and ghrelin all respond as well, signaling hunger and satiety in ways that feel clean, aligned, predictable. Even the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's central clock located in the hypothalamus, adjusts itself to this new regularity. It communicates to the liver, the gut, the kidneys, and the immune system. This is when we wake. This is when we rest. And the body listens. Fasting is not just about food. It is about timing, about letting the body breathe with the rhythm of the earth once more. Sleep is not merely a pause in consciousness. It is a place, a passage into softness, into healing, into a space where the body forgets effort and remembers how to mend. Fasting, when gentle and timed with nature, brings sleep back to its roots, not in quantity alone, but in depth. In the evening, without a full stomach to digest, the body signals the nervous system to shift from effort to ease. The parasympathetic state begins to bloom. The heart rate lowers, breath lengthens, cortisol recedes into stillness. The gut, freed from nighttime processing, rests in silence. And this silence travels upward to the brain, the lungs, the muscles. Melatonin rises earlier, more gracefully. With fewer late-night insulin spikes, it's no longer interrupted. It follows its curve, its arc, its signal to the pineal gland. GABA, the calming neurotransmitter, flows more freely. It turns the volume down on waking thoughts, on noise, on worry. Sleep becomes not escape, but return. Even sleep architecture begins to change. Studies show that people who fast, especially with early time-restricted eating, experience more slow-wave sleep, the deep, restorative stage where growth hormone pulses, where memory is consolidated, where inflammation is reduced. Sleep efficiency improves. REM sleep becomes clearer. Waking becomes softer. And most importantly, the sleep feels earned. Not because the body is exhausted, but because it is aligned, clear, ready. Fasting is not about deprivation. It is about restoration. And nowhere is that restoration more sacred than in sleep. Beyond sleep, beyond rest, there's another landscape, quieter still, more elusive, harder to name. It is the realm of dreams, those strange and shifting shapes of memory, emotion, and imagination that unfold behind the closed curtains of sleep. And fasting, gently, subtly, seems to touch them too. As blood sugar stabilizes and insulin quiets, the brain's chemistry shifts. Ketones, especially beta-hydroxybutyrate, become the dominant fuel. They move cleanly through the blood-brain barrier, calming excitability, sharpening focus. The brain, no longer distracted by digestion or inflammation, enters sleep in a new state, clearer, less inflamed, more metabolically balanced. In this state, REM sleep may become more vivid. Some fasters report dreams that are brighter, longer, filled with symbols that feel meaningful. Some speak of heightened awareness, of deep emotional processing, of visions that feel strangely awake. Though science is still unfolding this mystery, we know that fasting increases norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin levels in the brain, chemicals that influence both mood and dreaming. We also know that fasting enhances autophagy in neurons, clearing mental debris, allowing connections to form, making room for new insight. The result is not guaranteed, not predictable, but often when the body is still, when the mind is clear, the dreaming self feels safe enough to rise, to speak in images, in metaphors, in memories sewn together by the unseen hands of sleep. Fasting is not a gateway to dreams, but it opens the air around them. And in that quiet air, the mind begins to wander, not in confusion, but in wonder. The mind is not always noisy, but it is often unsettled. Modern life asks much of it. It is pulled in every direction, constantly responding, often before it can even feel. And when food arrives too often, when blood sugar dances unpredictably, when sleep is shallow and digestion never pauses, the emotional mind begins to spin, quickly, nervously, endlessly. Fasting begins to slow that spin, not with force, but with rhythm. When insulin levels fall and sugar is no longer the body's primary fuel, the brain begins to run on ketones. These molecules are steady, quiet, clean. They do not spike or crash or jolt. With this change comes a softening of reactivity, of urgency, of emotional noise. Norepinephrine and dopamine gently rise in the fasted brain, enhancing alertness without anxiety, clarity without overdrive. These changes support prefrontal cortex function, the region of the brain responsible for focus, impulse control, and thoughtful decisions. GABA, the brain's calming messenger, flows more freely. It whispers reassurance into the amygdala, the part of the brain that processes fear. Reactions become responses. Triggers grow less sharp. The world feels less like a storm and more like a rhythm. And perhaps most quietly, fasting allows for emotional presence. With no food constantly stimulating dopamine, the highs and lows of emotional eating begin to fade. Feelings surface not because they're louder, but because the static is gone. In the stillness of fasting, the mind is not silenced. It is heard, and in that hearing, it begins to find peace. Mental clarity is not just about intelligence. It is about the ability to focus, to breathe between thoughts, to move through the day with softness instead of noise. Fasting supports this clarity, again, not by energizing, but by clearing space. The brain, no longer chasing glucose or reacting to digestive hormones, begins to function in a more metabolically stable state. Blood flow to the frontal lobes increases. Mental fog begins to lift, not in a flash, but like mist rising from a morning field. Ketones, especially beta-hydroxybutyrate, become a preferred fuel for neurons. They are more efficient than glucose. They produce fewer reactive byproducts. They reduce oxidative stress in fragile synapses. This cleaner fuel supports memory, attention, and problem solving. Studies show increased levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, during fasting, an essential protein that supports neuroplasticity, learning, and resilience. And in daily life, this becomes a lived experience. You may find your thoughts more organized, your speech more measured, your reactions gentler. Tasks feel less like burdens, more like movements. Time seems to widen. Even simple things, folding laundry, listening to a loved one, writing a sentence, begin to feel less scattered. Clarity is not a burst. It is a quiet unfolding. And fasting, practiced with care and nourishment, makes room for that unfolding to happen again and again. Long before science spoke of insulin and ketones and inflammation, there were traditions, stories, sacred rhythms passed down in silence. Fasting, in nearly every ancient culture, was not about control, but about connection. In Buddhism, monks fast not to deny the body, but to release attachment, to allow space for the mind to witness itself. In Christianity, fasting has long been a practice of humility, a way to quiet the noise of the world so that the inner voice might be heard again. In Islam, the fast of Ramadan is not only abstinence, but remembrance, a discipline of light and reflection, a returning to simplicity, to gratitude, to God. Indigenous cultures around the world, often fasting for days before vision quests, describe not hunger, but clarity, not weakness, but openness. Even the Taoist sages spoke of long fasts as a way to cleanse not only the body, but the qi, the life force, so that it could flow without interference. And now, modern science confirms what the soul has long known, that fasting changes the brain, that it opens mental space, that it quiets inflammation, that it invites healing on every level. It is no surprise that when the body is stilled, the spirit rises. Not because fasting creates magic, but because it removes the noise that keeps us from sensing what was always there. The body is not simply chemistry. It is memory, breath, rhythm. And when it is allowed to rest, something ancient awakens, not outside us, but within. There comes a moment, soft and slow, when the fast comes to an end, not as a finish line, not as a relief, but as a return. The body, having shifted inward, begins to open again. The cells, once quiet and conserving, become ready. The senses sharpen, the breath deepens. And now, the first bite matters. Breaking a fast is not about feeding hunger. It is about honoring a state of deep stillness that the body has given you. The stomach, now rested, is more sensitive. The gut lining, more absorbent. The hormonal rhythms, rebalanced and refined, await their first cue. Choose simplicity, warmth, kindness. A small bowl of gently cooked vegetables, soft fruit, a handful of soaked nuts, perhaps a sip of bone broth or herbal tea. These are not just foods, they're bridges. They ease the gut into movement. They remind the liver to awaken. They signal the pancreas with calm precision. Avoid heavy sugars. Avoid alcohol. Avoid sudden indulgence. The fast was an offering. Let the return be a whisper, not a crash. Let the first chew be mindful. Let it move slowly across the tongue. Let the stomach receive, not grasp. Breaking the fast is not an end. It is a door. And if you open it gently, the stillness you found within will follow you through it. What happens after the fast is as important as the fast itself. In this window, this sacred time of refeeding, the body does not simply digest food, it rebuilds. As nutrients return, stem cells awaken. Growth hormone, already elevated, now partners with incoming amino acids, minerals, and vitamins to repair tissues, replenish enzymes, regrow what was gently cleared away. Autophagy fades, but its work is done, and now the body begins a phase of deep anabolism. Cells begin to replicate. Muscle fibers begin to heal. Collagen begins to form. The digestive enzymes, having rested, respond more sharply to new proteins and fats. The gut microbiome, previously trimmed and calmed, begins to repopulate, hopefully with the help of fiber-rich, whole foods that feed the beneficial strains. Refeeding with intention nourishes not only the body, but the repair pathways that fasting initiated. Leptin, the hormone of satiety, resets. Ghrelin, the signal of hunger, balances. Insulin rises, but now, in a body more receptive, more efficient, more sensitive. This is not a time for guilt or restriction. It is a time for nourishment. Eating after fasting is not a reversal, it is a completion. Like the rain after a dry season, like breath after a long pause. If the fast is the silence, then refeeding is the first note of the next song. Let it be clean, let it be beautiful, let it build the body you're meant to carry. After the fast, you may notice something subtle. A quiet in the limbs, a softness in the face, a breath that doesn't hurry. The body feels light, not from loss, but from clarity, from the absence of excess, from the return to rhythm. And in that space, there's room for gratitude, not the loud kind, but the quiet sort that lives beneath the ribs, that hums under the skin. Gratitude for the work your body has done, for the silence it kept, for the healing it initiated when you allowed its stillness. You may walk differently, slower, more aware of movement, more conscious of hunger, not as an enemy, but as a guide. Food may taste fuller, your senses more attuned, the world more rhythmic. Fasting is not an escape. It is not punishment. It is a practice, a way of listening to the body when it says, I need less for a while, so I can do more. Gratitude also helps you notice what fasting uncovered. Not just cellular changes, but emotional ones. Habits you paused, patterns you rewrote, feelings that rose and passed like waves. You are not the same, and the beauty is you were never meant to be. Each fast is a small act of healing. Each return, a new page. Each quiet moment, a chance to hear the body again. Whisper back to it gently, thank you. Aging is not a mistake, it is a rhythm. A slow shifting of tides, a deepening of lines that mark the body's journey through time. But though we cannot stop the clock, we can change how it ticks. Fasting does not promise immortality. It does not fight age with force. Instead, it slows aging gently by giving the body more moments of repair than erosion, more silence than stress. As we age, cellular damage accumulates. oxidation, glycation, inflammation, mitochondrial decay. Fasting touches each of these like cool water over stone. Oxidative stress, the quiet fraying of cells by reactive oxygen, drops with each hour the digestive system rests. Autophagy, the internal housekeeper, sweeps out damaged organelles, clears tangled proteins that might otherwise harden into dysfunction. Telomeres, the protective caps on the ends of chromosomes, wear down more slowly when insulin remains low and inflammation is kept at bay. In animal studies, fasting has been linked to preserved telomere length, a marker of cellular youth. And mitochondria, the energy makers of our cells, begin to renew. They become more efficient, more plentiful, less leaky. The result is less fatigue, fewer errors in cellular replication, and slower biological wear. This is not a reversal. It is a rebalancing. Fasting does not freeze time. It widens the space between its footsteps, so the body may walk longer with more ease and less burden. Within each cell lies a whisper, an ancient genetic script that tells the body when to grow, when to pause, when to survive. Fasting speaks directly to this script. It activates longevity pathways, molecular switches that extend life not by adding more time, but by preserving more function. One such pathway is AMPK, a sensor of energy. When activated by fasting, AMPK tells cells to stop storing and start cleaning, to halt fat production, to improve insulin sensitivity, to recycle what is broken. Another is mTOR, a pathway that governs growth. When food is abundant, mTOR is active, cells multiply quickly. But when fasting quiets mTOR, cells stop dividing and begin repairing. This shift reduces cancer risk, preserves DNA, supports balance over expansion. And then there is sirtuin activation, a family of proteins that repair DNA, protect mitochondria, and regulate aging. Fasting, like calorie restriction, turns these genes on. The body becomes more efficient, more alert to damage, more careful in its unfolding. Animal studies show dramatic increases in lifespan when these pathways are engaged through fasting, nutrient cycling, or caloric balance. In humans, it is not just about living longer, but living well for longer. These changes are not dramatic, not visible at once, but inside, the body becomes wiser, less hurried, more aligned with survival. Fasting does not chase youth. It honors it by giving the body time to remember how to last. Around the world, in quiet corners, there are places where people live longer, where aging is not feared, but folded gently into life. These are the blue zones: Okinawa in Japan, Ikaria in Greece, Sardinia in Italy, Nicoya in Costa Rica, Loma Linda in California. They share no single diet, no universal creed, but they share rhythms. And among those rhythms is fasting. In Okinawa, elders traditionally ate fewer calories, not out of restriction, but from the principle of hara hachibiyu, stopping when 80% full. Their days moved with the sun. Their meals were light, slow, plant-based. In Ikaria and Sardinia, fasting was part of religious observance. Dozens of fast days each year, woven into the cultural calendar. Meals were simple, meat was rare, and the body was given long stretches of rest. In Loma Linda, Seventh-day Adventists often practice intermittent fasting, with early dinners and long overnight fasts. Their routines align with a natural circadian rhythm. In these cultures, food is not entertainment. It is connection. Mealtimes are sacred. Movement is natural. Stress is low. And fasting is not branded. It is not measured with apps or charts. It is cultural stillness, a part of life's breath, a pause between harvests, a rest between meals. These people do not seek youth, they live it, not because of magic or wealth or biohacking, but because they remember something modern life forgets. The body heals best when it is given time and space to do so. Fasting in their lives is not a tool. It is a tradition. And in that tradition, life stretches long, quiet, gentle, meaningful. Fasting is not a command. It is a conversation. Between you and your body, between effort and stillness. To fast well, you must learn to listen, not only to hours on a clock, but to the whispers within, the changes in breath, the subtle alerts from the heart, the rise and fall of energy, clarity, mood. Hunger itself is not always a signal to eat. It can come in waves, then pass like wind across a field. It may arrive at the time of a habit, not the time of a need. True hunger, the kind that calls from deep within, is slower, quieter, steadier. It does not panic. It requests. Learn to notice the difference. During a fast, the body may offer new sensations, a lightness in the limbs, a coolness in the fingers, a sharpened focus that feels both alert and calm. Sometimes there's a soft fatigue that signals rest, not failure. The body is working inwardly. It is using energy to repair, not to perform. Other times, the body may signal clearly, a headache that lingers, dizziness that doesn't pass, confusion, nausea, weakness. These are not tests to be pushed through. They are thresholds. Respect them. Fasting works in harmony, not in dominance. It is a practice of listening, of choosing when to continue and when to pause. Because the body always speaks, and the most healing fasts are the ones that let it speak freely, without punishment, without force. Fasting is a beautiful rhythm, but it is not for every season. There are times, places, and phases in life when the body needs more, not less. Children and adolescents, whose bodies are still building, need regular nourishment. Pregnant and breastfeeding mothers carry two bodies at once, two metabolisms, two rhythms, two hearts. Fasting here is not sacred. It is unsafe. Those recovering from trauma, whether physical, emotional, or mental, may find that restriction adds stress, not stillness. The nervous system, already alert, may misinterpret hunger as danger. In cases of disordered eating, anorexia, bulimia, or orthorexia, fasting can become camouflage. What may look like control can be another voice of fear. Healing here means eating freely, gently, consistently. Chronic illnesses, too, deserve care. For people with adrenal fatigue, uncontrolled diabetes, or thyroid conditions, fasting should be guided, if done at all. There is no virtue in suffering. There is no wisdom in ignoring what the body pleads for. Discipline is not about going longer. It is about choosing what nourishes most. And sometimes nourishment is warmth, presence, food, Fasting is not a contest. It is a practice of rhythm, and rhythm means knowing when to rest the silence. There is no single fast that fits all bodies. Each body carries its own story, its ancestry, its metabolism, its traumas, its joys. Some feel light with a 16-hour fast. Others feel unsteady. Some thrive on alternate day rhythms. Others need daily balance. Some fast naturally in the morning. Others find peace eating early and fasting through evening. These patterns are not weaknesses. They are personal languages. Women's bodies, for example, follow monthly tides of estrogen and progesterone. During the luteal phase, just before menstruation, cortisol sensitivity is higher. Fasting may feel more stressful. During ovulation, insulin sensitivity peaks. Fasting may feel smooth and effortless. Honoring these shifts is not giving in. It is tuning in. Those with high activity levels, athletes, dancers, laborers, may find fasting needs to be shorter, softer, or cyclical. Their bodies burn brighter and require more frequent replenishment. Even climate plays a part. In colder seasons, longer fasts may feel grounding. In heat, shorter windows may be better. The body adjusts to light, to temperature, to movement. There is no universal fasting window. There is only your window. And discovering it is not about copying a plan, but noticing how your body feels before the fast, during, after. Does it sharpen your focus? Will make you feel foggy? Does it deepen sleep or disrupt it? Does it bring peace or pressure? Let your body lead. Because in truth, the best fasting rhythm is not the most impressive. It is the one that leaves you feeling whole. In a world full of trends and short-lived fixes, fasting often arrives as a headline, a challenge, a number on a screen. But it is older than any of that. Fasting is not a product. It is not a competition. It is not a detox to be bought or timed to a calendar. It is a companion, a quiet rhythm you carry like breath, like silence, like rest. You may fast longer in one season, shorter in another. You may pause altogether. You may come back to it years later in a different place with a different body. And still, it will meet you with the same stillness, the same calm, the same invitation to come home. Fasting, when done mindfully, is not something you follow. It is something you remember. You remember that hunger can teach you to listen, that stillness can teach you to feel, that food, when it returns, is not just fuel, but a celebration of life renewed. There is no finish line, only the quiet comfort of knowing that whenever you need to realign, when the body feels heavy, when a mind feels scattered, when life grows loud, fasting is there, not as a rule, but as a friend, soft, silent, waiting. Now, as this journey draws to a close, the silence within you may feel more spacious. You've walked through the body's inner rhythms, through ketones and autophagy, through brain clarity and emotional stillness, through skin that breathes again and minds that dream anew. You've seen how fasting is not emptiness, but presence. You've heard how repair happens not in chaos, but in pause. And most of all, you felt how healing does not shout. It whispers, slowly, deeply, kindly. Fasting reminds us of something the world often forgets, that stillness is medicine, not the kind bottled or branded, but the kind that lives in quiet hours, in calm breaths, in the gentle absence of doing. So whether you fast tomorrow or not for years, whether your fast lasts 16 hours or just one mindful afternoon, know this: the body is listening, the body remembers, and every time you choose stillness, every time you rest rather than rush, you are choosing to heal, not from lack, but from love, not from control, but from trust. And in that trust, something ancient opens, a silence more powerful than effort, a rhythm more real than time, a stillness that lives in you always. Thank you for letting this story unfold beside you. If this journey brought you peace, you may choose to return to it again, like a favorite path in a quiet forest. Until next time, rest well, breathe slow, and let your body remind you that healing often begins not in doing more, but in doing less. You are safe. You are whole. You are enough.